Joining us now in an exclusive interview, Jack Lew, former Treasury Secretary and Chief of Staff to Barack Obama. Mr. Secretary, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you.
There's been a lot of debate, including within the Democratic Party over the last week or so, about whether, if in doubt, you should do more stimulus or less. Where do you stand on that, particularly given, of course, we are hopefully nearing the end of the pandemic and there has been so much stimulus already?
So, I think it's important to start where I think most people, certainly most Democrats, agree, is that there's an urgent need for more action to respond to both the health and the economic fallout from the pandemic. When Congress acted at the end of the year, it quite deliberately didn't go far enough. The unemployment benefit extension expires in the middle of next month, and we're a long ways away from seeing 10 million plus workers get back on the job. So there is an urgent need for action. I think there's an urgent need for very substantial action. You know, you look at what's in the package that's really critical. It ranges from unemployment insurance to housing assistance to nutrition support to health benefits, both to provide the vaccine and treatment, and the list goes on. These are immediate needs. I think the areas where there was not agreement in December are still very real. Things like state and local assistance is critical. Exactly what the size is, people might be able to debate. But the fact that the needs are great, I think, is pretty objectively clear. And there are things in this package that do a lot to bridge some of the gaps we have, the childhood poverty problem, which has been exacerbated by the crisis, the lack of health coverage, exacerbated by the crisis. So when you get to the question of how big should it be and what is the trade-off between deficit and emergency response, I've never thought you should start with a number. I think you need to start with address the problems that you need to get through the crisis and to get people through the crisis and to make sure we don't leave tens of millions of people behind. So you look at the size, it's going to be big. I think the starting point where the Senate Republicans were was not anywhere near close enough. Is there room for something maybe a bit smaller? Sure, you could target the tax payments, the stimulus checks. You could trim some other things. But when it comes to the inflation risks, I think this is not the right time to be worried about that. It's not very likely that this money will spend out exactly the way the worst case scenarios look at. It would have to all go into the economy at the same moment to overheat in the way that people have raised fears about. My experience with spending packages like this is they have a long tail and people are worried that they're spending out too late, not too quickly. And as Secretary Yellen has said, there are a lot of tools to deal with inflationary concerns if they come up. And as Chairman Powell has said, the Fed is going to have to be a little bit more flexible in targeting because trying to hit no more than 2 has not worked to bring the kind of balance. And there may have to be some room to be a little bit over. We're nowhere near that point right now.
Well, I wanted to ask specifically about the stimulus checks. Do you think they should be used for things like investing in the stock market, if indeed that's been happening? Or should they only be going to the people that actually need the money to spend right now rather than save it for the future or invest it for the future?
Look, I've been consistent on this for the entirety of this debate. The more targeted the assistance is to the people who need it immediately, the more it's going to help the economy and the more it's going to affect the adverse effects of the economic crisis. We've seen savings build up because, in part, the stimulus checks went to many people that didn't have the immediate need. I know that there's been a lot of bipartisan support to keep the level very high. To the extent that the checks are targeted to the people who need it the most, I think it gives you the most bang for the buck. I think when you go back to the question of targeting, we have to remember that the effects of the pandemic have not been equal across every part of society. They've been most severe at the lower and middle income levels, and they've been least severe at levels where people have been able to continue working remotely and have had very little disruption. So, to me, that's what should guide the decisions.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.